What's up, guys? What's going on? I'm Paul. This is Pauline Theology's Daily Devo, and we're with Trust in Jesus Ministries, and we are on the last episode of Finding Rebekah, looking for a wife for Isaac. We are arriving at the home. We've went to the land. We've requested of God. We've found the girl. We've talked to the parents. We've let her, the parents have let her come be married. We've taken her, and now we are arriving. And so if you haven't checked out Genesis 24:62 through 67, man, you got to read it. We got to finish it, man. We got to finish it. And so stop the tape, see what it has to say, come back, we'll answer the questions. If you've already read it, man, let's jump into it. So what's it talking about, man? What is the scriptures talking about? Well, it says that Isaac was out in the field, man. He was meditating, contemplating. And this word for meditate, contemplate, it has a bunch of different connotations. And one of them, people have thought that it actually could be like a mourning. And we'll talk about that here in a second and why it's important. But it's like mourning, a sense of mourning, not just meditation. But it was in the evening time. He was out in the field. And a little note too on the text is that the place that he's at right now is actually the place where God had saw Hagar in her mourning as Sarah had drove her away with her meanness. And so this is the place in which was spoken that the boy is going to be okay. But that's just an aside. That's kind of like what the author is making a juxtaposition, showing that Isaac is the one who is going to receive the blessing and not Ishmael. Even though Ishmael has a blessing, as in he's going to be a great nation and nations are going to come out of him, but it is not the nation who blesses the world through the Christ, which we find out is through the Christ. Is that's not his lineage that does that. It is the lineage of Isaac. So it's kind of just as a reader and as an Israelite reading this is one thing that they would see, is that it's showing that the promised child is Isaac and not Abraham, or not Ishmael, which is crazy because it seems like one small, I don't know if it's small sin whenever you, have a child with another woman, but that one sin affects so much stuff. So I wasn't expecting to talk about this, but I'll give a little application, is that don't think that your sin is minimal, because, man, that one small sin could have long-lasting effects. And we see it even today as the wars between the war that's going on right now over there between Hamas and the Israelites, or the Jews. That is come from the Isaac and Ishmael lineages. So that is one thing that has just cast a shadow over generations, is from that one sin. Sin is serious, people. Sin is serious. Anyway, as Isaac was out there, it says he looked up and saw some camels coming. And then it says that Rebekah looked up and saw Isaac out in the field, and she's like, man, who that dude out there, man? Who that guy that's coming towards us? And the servant said, that's my master. And she's like, ooh. And so she jumped off the camel real quick, put a veil on, man, getting ready, because she was excited to see this brother. And so it says that as soon as he got there, the servant told his master, Isaac, all of these things that took place, all of the things that happened. A little note here is that earlier throughout the entire chapter, when we read, it would always say, my master's son. And so the master would actually be Abraham. But in this instant, we see that the master is now Isaac. And this is important because it's just a transitional phase between stories. We're on the last part, the last leg of Abraham. We'll have a little bit to talk about the death of Abraham in the next chapter, but this chapter focuses now on the transition of the faithfulness of God to the next generation. And so Isaac has now become the master. And I talked a little bit about Sarah earlier and why that was important. Why the mourning, it could be the mourning of Sarah, is because Abraham's not mentioned at all in this. And so he's put aside. But Sarah is mentioned, and her death is mentioned, because now we find the new Sarah. And the new Sarah is Rebekah. Because it says right after he mentioned all these things, it says that Isaac took Rebekah into his mother's tent. And then it says that they became married. And then that Isaac loved her. And that's one thing that's super important, because Abraham, we've seen, really loved his wife. It was something a bit different than you might often think of in arranged marriages, because we don't think like that these days. But Abraham loved his wife, but Isaac loved Rebekah. He loved her. And it says, and through this love, he was comforted for his mom. So Isaac, that's why I said earlier that it might be the fact that this word that we have for meditate actually could mean more of is saddened or grieved during this time, man. And this is a deep grief too, because this could be up to I think 30 years, 36 years that Isaac has been mourning the loss of his mother. Now, I know that, man, I don't personally know. I have not lost my mother by God's grace, but I know that's a deep and difficult situation. It's personal and it's hard. And so that could be a long-lasting thing. But it says that finally that Isaac finds relief. He finds comfort in his partnership with Rebekah. And so this is another thing I said about the transition as Rebekah becomes the new Sarah, and then the promises and the stories of God's faithfulness and how he's going to create a great nation from the lineage of Abraham has moved on to the next patriarch, to Isaac, and the next matriarch, to Rebekah. So what does this say about God? Well, it just shows that God is faithful to fulfill his promise. There's that word again, faithful. Because we see the transition between Abraham to Isaac, from Sarah to Rebekah, and that he is going to continue to be with them. As he said that he would be a God to Abraham and to his seed. And so we're going to see that Abraham, or that Yahweh is going to move to Isaac and be a God to him. What's this say about man is that, man, when man is dependent on God, comfort can be found. When man is dependent on God, comfort can be found, man. It's the dependence that Isaac shows on God is his honor of his father. You see, I don't know, it never mentions that he was ever made privy or abreast of the situation that was going on about his wife retrieval mission that the servant had to do. In the same way, it's also like he didn't get all the details when he was going up to the mountain, that when God had called Abraham to test Abraham on the mountain. And so Isaac is just being faithful by honoring his father and depending on God's provision for all the things that he needed. And so this wife, this comfort that he needed, he found by just depending on God. Do we do that? That's the question. Do we do that, man? And so our application today is, man, take time. Recount the blessings of God that he has placed upon you. See his goodness. See his promises fulfilled. See him being faithful time and time again. And then rest on that faithfulness. Be comforted in that provision, in that trust, and that sovereignty. Hey, I appreciate you guys for listening, and I will see you guys in the next episode.